One thing we were taught, though, in Mary's house was this, and it was the principle that it's the decisions you make in life that shape your destiny. How many of you know that to be true? 100% of this room, you know that to be true. So I'll share with you a decision that completely changed the trajectory of my life. I'm a senior in college, and I've just spent the last 4 years going through pre-med to be a doctor. Taking organic chemistry, taking molecular biology, all of that track, taken my MCATs, gotten my recommendations for medical school, and I'm about to apply to medical school, and I've got the application, but throughout the last year of schooling, I kept hearing this still small voice whisper to me the word teacher. Teacher. And so I went and I looked up how much teachers made. And I said, no, thank you. I want to provide for my family in a different way than that. And so, but that voice kept coming up and I said, teacher. And I would say, nope. Teacher, no, thank you. Teacher, hey, I talked to you already, okay? But it's a funny thing that happens when you ignore the still small voice. Does it get softer or louder? It tends to get louder, doesn't it? And so that voice was thundering away at me, teacher, teacher, teacher. And so I said, all right, fine. And I did enough to just get the application for graduate school at the University of Oregon, because they had an amazing teacher program at the time. And so I'm sitting at my desk and it's time to make a move. I've got to make a decision one way or the other. And medical school, graduate school for education. So I call Mary, I call my mom, and I say, hey, Mom, I got a question to ask you. And she goes, what is it, honey? And I said, I know I have just spent the last 4 years of my life on the track to becoming a doctor. I've spent $100,000 on this education. Well, actually, correction, you have spent $100,000 on this education. Thank you. But I'm really feeling this still small voice is calling to be a teacher. What should I do? And there was a long pause. And then Mary says to me, Matt, I will give you the advice that my father gave me when I was at a crossroads. And my father told me, when looking at each choice, do the one that gives you life. And the moment she said, do what gives you life, I knew exactly which path was life-giving. And that was to be a teacher. And so I crumpled up the application for medical school, threw it in the trash, filled out the application for graduate school of education, and sent it off. 3 weeks later, I'm in India with Mary on a spiritual pilgrimage that we had planned many months in advance. It's a 2-week trip. Halfway through the trip, the organizer comes to Mary and myself and says, I have an opportunity for you two and 2 other people to meet with a real-life spiritual yogi. If you want to have the experience, he will read your aura. It'll be a great experience. And so we said, okay, that'll be great. And so the 4 of us were led by our guide through these small artery way pathways through this village, dirt roads, and there were men leading donkeys that were pulling wagons filled with cabbage. They're pushing past us, squeezing past us, and we could smell the scent of curry being cooked in the kitchens. And finally, we reached this one home, and there's a stairwell around the outside of the home leading up to the roof. And as we walk up this stairwell and we stand on the roof, we see this gentleman sitting there, all dressed in white, with a shock of white hair, and he's sitting in a plastic Corona chair. And there was just something about that I was like, yeah. And I had the thought, oh, what if he tells me something that makes me doubt the decision I just made? And so we're getting ready, and my mom says, okay, we're going to go. And I say, you know what? I think you guys should have the experience. I think I'm good. I don't need this, you know. And my mom goes, what's going on? And so I said, well, I just made this important decision, and I don't want somebody putting seeds of doubt in my mind. And she goes, fair enough. That's fair. But she goes, we'll have the experience, and I'll just share with you my experience, and then you can make up your mind. So the first person sits down. There were 2 chairs. The person sits down in front of this yogi. The yogi puts his hand on their forehead, and the yogi closes his eyes, and the person's relaxed and open, and they close their eyes, and the yogi opens his eyes and says, your aura is green and yellow and blue and red, and each one had a significance to it, and he was going down all the meanings, and that person came back to us and said, that was extraordinary. It was amazing. Second person goes, sits down. Yogi puts his hand on their forehead. They're closed eyes, relaxed. They both open their eyes. The yogi says, your aura is orange and red and yellow, and each one had a significant meaning for that person. And the person came back and said, that was extraordinary. That was amazing. So Mary goes, sits down. Mary closes her eyes. She's open. The yogi puts his palm of his hand on her forehead, opens his eyes and says, your color is this and this and this and this and this. All these different colors, and each one means this. And my mom came back to me, looked me in the eyes and said, this man is the real deal. And I said, fine. I'll go. So I sit down in front of this guy, cross my arms, sit down. He puts his hand on my forehead, and I've got my eyes wide open. And so he finally opens his eyes and he goes, young man, your aura is yellow. And I say, and? He goes, pure yellow. I said, great. Already I'm feeling aura deficient. And I said, okay, what does yellow mean? And he goes, yellow is the color of a teacher. And I got a lump in my throat, and tears filled my eyes because I knew that still small voice was the voice of my purpose. It was the voice of what was aligned in me, calling me to the life I was meant to live. And I almost missed it by what I thought I was supposed to do. And he asked me in that moment, he goes, young man, what do you plan on doing with your life? And I said, well, it's interesting you say that, sir, because I just enrolled in the Graduate School of Education to get my master's, become a teacher. I'll never forget. He grabs my hand and he says, good job. Way to listen. Way to listen. You see, because I had no idea as that 22-year-old kid sitting at that rickety desk my senior year in college, that by listening to that still small voice, it would send me on a trajectory that would put me at the perfect place at the perfect time to catch an idea for a book that would later receive a 6-figure advance from Simon & Schuster, that would later put me with my best friend on the Today Show, not just teaching to 30 kids at a time, but teaching to 6 million people at a time. That would then turn into an international speaking career, speaking to thousands of people around the world. And that my classroom would stretch beyond just something with brick and mortar walls, but would become over 80 million people online at this point. I had no idea. I could not see it from that standpoint. But I am so glad that that kid listened to that still small voice.